In May 2015, the FASB issued Accounting Standard Update 2015-07, Disclosures for Investments in Certain Entities that Calculate Net Asset Value per Share. This eliminates the requirement for certain investments measured at net asset value to be categorized in the fair value hierarchy. The new guidance will have a fairly broad scope, and it affects any entity that invests in an investment company and chooses to measure that investment using the net asset value practical expedient. Welcome to the KPMG podcast on ASU 2015-07. My name is Dan Amat. I'm joined today by Robin Van Voorhees. We are senior managers in KPMG's Department of Professional Practice. During this podcast, we'll discuss why this topic was added to the EITF's agenda, provide an overview of the ASU. But first, Robin, please give us a little background on the new standard. Why was it brought to the EITF's attention?
Sure, Dan. So under the FASB's Fair Value Measurement Guidance, or Topic 820, reporting entities are permitted to use net asset value, or NAV, as a practical expedient to estimate the fair value of an investment, generally when that investment is in an investment company. And when the practical expedient is applied, the categorization of those investments within the fair value hierarchy is generally dependent on the redemption attributes of the investment. And this is because redemption periods often depend on the nature of the underlying investments in the investment companies. So, for example, investments in investment companies with highly liquid investments such as money market funds or publicly traded equity funds, these are often redeemable at frequent intervals such as daily or monthly. And then you might have investment companies that invest in illiquid investments such as private equity or real estate funds, and those often have unknown redemption periods or the investments are never redeemable. So, under current guidance, if the investment is redeemable on the measurement date, it is categorized as level 2. If it is never redeemable or if redemption is unknown, it will be categorized as level 3. So the issue here really arises when investments are redeemable at a future date, such as quarterly or annually. And when this occurs, reporting entities need to determine if the investment is redeemable in the near term, in which case the investment would be categorized as level 2. So near term is not defined in Topic 820, and reporting entities have interpreted near term to mean different things. So some have said less than 90 days and others less than 180 days, and even some companies have said less than 1 year. So this has resulted in diversity in practice.
I think an example of how this could play out would be helpful, Robin, to show us how that diversity might pop up.
All right, Dan, so let's assume that you are the portfolio controller of DA Fund. And DA Fund has a calendar year end of 12/31 and has an investment in Investee Fund, which has an annual redemption date of 1/1. Now, your company has decided to define near term to mean less than 90 days. So at year end, you would categorize that investment at level 2 because at that date, your investment is redeemable within the near term or within that 90-day time frame.
Well, what about the remaining quarters of the year, though?
So you actually would be recategorizing your investment from level 2 to level 3 in Q1, Q2, and Q3 because at those dates, your investment is no longer redeemable in the near term, or at least based on how you've defined near term. So here we see the same investment being categorized at different levels of the fair value hierarchy at different times during the year. And to build on this example, let's assume that REV Company is a public company and has a fiscal year end of 1/31 and also has investment in Investee Fund. So this company defines near term to mean less than 90 days, so the same as yours. But because its measurement date is 1/31, it would categorize its investment as level 3 at its measurement date. So we see two different reporting entities categorizing similar or identical investments at different levels of the hierarchy within 1 month of each other simply because they have different reporting dates.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks, Robin. So let's move on to the EITF's discussion. Can you give us an overview of what they talked about in March and September and then where they ended up?
Sure. So in September of 2014, the EITF discussed this issue. They explored some alternatives with intent to reduce diversity in practice, but ultimately reached a consensus for exposure that would eliminate the requirement to categorize within the fair value hierarchy these types of investments when their fair values are measured using the NAV practical expedient. But they would require reporting entities to disclose sufficient information to allow users to reconcile the fair value hierarchy table to the statement of financial position. Now, these proposals also would narrow the scope of the current disclosure requirements to only investments to which the practical expedient is applied, because now the guidance applies to all investments that are eligible to apply the practical expedient. So in October, the FASB issued a proposed standard for public comment. The comment period ended in January. 18 comment letters were received. And generally, respondents were very supportive of these proposals, but some concerns were raised, including some consequential issues that related to some other standards, which I'll talk about in a bit.
So it sounds like for companies that invest in these NAV investments and have to put together a fair value hierarchy, this is going to be a significant change in how they put that table together.
That's right, Dan, and definitely a simplification. We see this as an opportunity to improve financial reporting for these types of investments, but also will help to eliminate these inconsistencies in practice.
Okay, so what did they decide in March?
So then in March 2015, the EITF met again, and they reached a final consensus and generally reaffirmed their proposals from September. And again, so upon adoption, entities will no longer categorize these investments measured at NAV under the practical expedient within the fair value hierarchy, and preparers will be required to provide sufficient information so that users can reconcile between the hierarchy table and the statement of financial position. But I also mentioned that during the comment period, some respondents had some concerns about other standards that would be affected by these proposals. So in response, the EITF agreed to make some clarifying amendments. So the first has to do with topic 230 about the statement of cash flows. So today, certain investment companies are exempt from providing a statement of cash flows if substantially all of the entity's investments are carried at fair value and are classified as level 1 or level 2. However, the proposals here would require certain investment companies that do not currently provide a statement of cash flows to provide one, because certain investments measured under the practical expedient would no longer be classified as level 2. This really wasn't the EITF's intent, so in response they agreed to amend topic 230 to continue to exempt certain investment companies from providing a statement of cash flows if substantially all of their investments are level 1 or level 2, or are measured using the NAV practical expedient and are redeemable in the near term at all times. So most investment companies that are exempt from providing a statement of cash flows today will continue to meet the exemption criteria. And then the next is with regards to topic 715 about compensation retirement benefits for employers. And topic 17 provides some fair value measurement disclosure requirements for pension plan assets of a defined benefit pension, but doesn't really discuss the use of NAV as a practical expedient to fair value or require specific disclosures for investments that are measured at NAV. So our understanding is that many reporting entities actually do use the practical expedient in practice, and this was recognized by many respondents. So they requested that topic 715 be amended to clearly state that pension plan investments can be valued using the NAV practical expedient, and that those investments should not be categorized within the fair value hierarchy. The ITF did agree to make this conforming amendment, but decided not to make any decisions about other fair value disclosures for pension plan investments measured using the NAV practical expedient. They agreed this would really be better addressed by the FASB's disclosure framework team, and that is an ongoing project today.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Robin. So let's talk about transition. When will this be effective? When can companies start taking advantage of this?
Sure, so the new guidance requires retrospective adoption, so all comparative periods presented would be affected. And the effective date for public business entities is for annual periods beginning after December 15th, 2015, and interim periods within those annual periods, so generally calendar year 2016. And the effective date for all other entities would be 1 year later, so calendar 2017. And early adoption would be permitted and encouraged.
Who's going to be affected by this mainly? What type of companies and industries?
It's a great question, Dan, and one we commonly receive. And the new guidance, as you said earlier in introducing this podcast, is going to affect any entity that invests in an investment company and chooses to use the NAV practical expedient to estimate fair value. So primarily this will be entities within that investment management umbrella, and examples include fund of funds and hedge funds. But there will be other entities impacted by this, such as not-for-profit entities, pension plans, other financial institutions such as insurance companies. So this new guidance will actually have a fairly broad scope.
Okay, thank you, Robin. For more information on ASU 2015-07, you can refer to our Defining Issues publication, which summarizes the EITF's discussion and the new standard. The Defining Issues is available for download at KPMG's Financial Reporting Network website. Thank you for listening.